I don't even know how to begin this. This happened about 5 months ago, and I've only just gotten the nerve to write it down now. It sounds like some sick horror movie script, but trust me, it's all real. I've done some pretty shady gigs to pay the rent, like filming weird fetish shit for obscure websites or following cheating husbands around with a hidden camera. But this one takes the fucking cake. I got this message on Telegram from a dude who found me through Reddit. I used to post videos on R Urban Exploration and R No Sleep occasionally. The guy introduced himself as Jax, obviously a fake name, and told me he had a very particular gig. I was desperate, bills piling up, eating shitty Taco Bell twice a day kind of desperate, so I listened. Jax said he needed someone to film paranormal activity deep in some remote woods upstate. He made it sound like some goofy Blair Witch Project ripoff at first. I laughed at him, thinking it was some nerdy horror roleplay thing, but he got dead serious real fast. He told me I'd get paid $7,000 in cash, no taxes, no questions, half up front. Red flags everywhere, I know, but $7,000 was enough to shut off the alarms ringing in my head. Jax gave me very clear instructions. I had to go to a tiny rundown motel called the Blue Spruce Inn in some town called Millerville. He sent coordinates to a wooded area just a few miles away, told me I had to go alone and at night, bring my camera gear and meet someone called Rabbit. He gave me a creepy, cryptic warning too. No cops, no posting about it, or we'll know. Of course, I ignored my gut and said yes. Fast forward to 2 nights later, around 10:30 p.m. I'm pulling up in my beat-up silver Toyota Corolla to the Blue Spruce Inn. It's one of those places you see in shitty movies, flickering neon sign, boarded up windows, stains you hope are ketchup, but probably aren't. I park near room 6, where Rabbit is supposedly waiting. I'm nervous now, second-guessing every decision, but I'm broke and running on adrenaline. I knock on the door and hear someone shuffle around. When the door swings open, I see Rabbit for the first time. This guy looks like someone you'd cross the street to avoid. Skinny, pale, greasy black hair, slicked back, with teeth that looked yellow from cigarettes and neglect. He smelled like piss and vodka, and his eyes looked sunken, half dead. He nods at me, doesn't even say hello, and just hands me an envelope. Inside is exactly $3,500 in hundreds. Rabbit tells me to follow him, and I do, even though every nerve in my body screams not to. We get into his rusted Ford van, littered with empty Red Bull cans, used napkins, a stained mattress in the back that made my stomach turn, and even a rifle laying casually beside it. Rabbit never says a word, and I'm too scared to ask questions. We drive for what feels like hours, but is probably 20 minutes, deeper and deeper into dark, narrow roads. Eventually, we park in a clearing next to a dilapidated wooden shack, almost collapsing from decay. He finally turns to me, his breath sour from booze, and says, "Stay close. Film everything. Don't fuck this up." He grabs the rifle from the back, lights a cigarette with trembling fingers, and leads me into the woods. At this point, I'm half expecting some cheesy ghost prank or a satanic cosplay. But the deeper we get into these woods, the more my fear feels justified. There are no noises out here, no owls, crickets, nothing. Complete dead silence except for the crunch of our feet on dead leaves and Rabbit's raspy breathing. My anxiety ramps up every minute. We must have walked at least a mile into the trees when I see something ahead. Another small shack, hidden behind some bushes and barely visible. Rabbit stops and signals me to set up my gear. I place my Sony camera on a tripod and start filming, expecting some stupid ghost hunting performance. Instead, Rabbit signals to someone else in the shadows, and suddenly 2 figures emerge, dragging something heavy behind them. My heart starts racing, pounding in my chest so hard it hurts. At first, I can't make out clearly what they're dragging. Maybe a large sack or garbage bag. I zoom in with the camera lens, trying to keep steady hands, and that's when I see it clearly. It's a woman, bound at her wrists and ankles, gagged with duct tape, struggling weakly as she's pulled into the center of this clearing. She's wearing regular clothes, a pink hoodie smeared with dirt and blood, and black yoga pants torn at the knee. Her eyes are wide, terrified, silently begging for help. My stomach drops like a fucking stone, nausea overwhelming me, but I'm frozen, rooted in place by raw animalistic fear. Rabbit gestures for me to keep filming, his eyes hard and threatening. He whispers something inaudible to the two guys who dragged her, and they cut off her tape gag. The woman screams, an ear-piercing, desperate cry for help, echoing horribly through the silent woods. She's begging, sobbing, pleading for them to stop. Rabbit steps forward casually, slaps her hard across the face, and tells her to shut up. She spits blood onto the leaves, trembling and whimpering, her eyes darting wildly from Rabbit to me. "Please," she begs, looking directly into the camera lens, right at me, as if she knows someone out there is watching. "Help me! They're gonna kill me!" I feel vomit rising, swallowing back bile as the situation fully dawns on me. This isn't paranormal, this is a fucking snuff film. My knees nearly buckle, but Rabbit notices me flinching and slowly raises his rifle, aiming it right at me, mouthing clearly, "Keep filming!" I'm terrified, shaking, tears blurring my vision, but survival kicks in. I keep the camera rolling, filming this woman scream, thrash, beg, as these men circle her like predators. They take turns hitting her, taunting her. One guy, younger, maybe 19 or 20, has a twisted smile and starts tearing off her hoodie, exposing bruised skin beneath. I can't stop this. I'm forced to watch this horror unfold, recording every disgusting detail. Eventually, Rabbit steps closer, leans into the woman's face and whispers something that makes her go completely still, eyes wide with primal fear. I can't hear what he says, but I see the color drain from her face as she realizes she's not leaving these woods alive. Rabbit then steps back, raises his rifle, and points it directly at her forehead. I scream internally but can't move, can't breathe. The shot rings out, deafening, echoing violently off the trees. Her body slumps instantly, lifelessly onto the dirt, blood pouring steadily from a dark hole in her skull. I vomit openly, coughing bile onto the ground beside the camera. Rabbit calmly lights another cigarette, wipes blood splatter off his face with the back of his sleeve, and walks over to me. He stares coldly into my eyes and says, almost casually, "Hope you got everything. Boss doesn't like retakes." I'm shaking uncontrollably, tears running down my face, snot dripping, pure horror gripping every muscle. Rabbit tosses another envelope at my feet, the remaining $3,500. He tells me to keep quiet, reminding me that they'll always be watching, and walks off into the darkness, leaving me alone, frozen next to a fresh corpse, still bleeding out into the dirt. I don't know how long I stood there before my body finally moved. Eventually, I stumbled back to my car, vomiting twice more along the way, paranoid and broken. I spent the next 3 days locked inside my apartment, too scared to leave, reliving the images endlessly. I wanted paranormal. Instead, I got human evil. And now I can't stop seeing her face, her eyes, begging me for help that I never gave. And the worst part? This was only the beginning. It took me almost a week to gather enough courage to even leave my apartment again. The paranoia was unbearable. I'd spent days chain-smoking Marlboros, drinking whiskey straight from the bottle, blinds drawn, peeking through the curtains every few minutes. My phone buzzed non-stop, but I ignored every call, message, or notification. Instagram, Snapchat, Reddit notifications piling up. I even taped over my laptop webcam, terrified they were watching me through it. Honestly, I was just waiting for a bullet through my window at that point. Then on the 8th day, another message popped up on Telegram from an unknown user called Jax. My heart nearly stopped. All it said was, "You did well." They liked your work. Ready for round 2? I threw my phone across the room, breathing heavily, panic squeezing my chest. Fuck no. No amount of money would ever get me near those sick bastards again. But as I sat there in silence, hands trembling, a new message notification chimed from the cracked screen on the floor. Against my better judgment, I picked it up and read 20,000, same rules, don't disappoint us. 20 grand, more than I made in 6 months of shitty freelance gigs. It was insane to even consider, but debt collectors had started calling again. My landlord had already given me a final eviction notice, and desperation clouded my judgment. Still, I hesitated. Then came the next message, one that made my blood run cold. You know what happens if you say no? Below the message was an attached picture. It was grainy, taken from across the street, but undeniably clear. It was me leaving my apartment yesterday morning, hunched in my hoodie, buying cigarettes at the corner 7-Eleven. They'd been following me. I realized in a sickening instant that I never had a choice. These people knew exactly where I lived, who I was. Saying no wasn't an option. They'd kill me without a second thought. I replied with a single, shaky, "Okay," feeling like I'd just signed my own death warrant. The following night I was told to meet Rabbit again, this time at an abandoned warehouse near the edge of town. My stomach turned at the thought, but I drove there anyway, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. It was a crumbling brick building, graffiti-covered, reeking of piss and mildew. Rabbit was leaning against his shitty van, smoking a cigarette, waiting with those dead eyes. "Welcome back," he grunted sarcastically. He looked even more wasted this time, eyes bloodshot, shirt stained with sweat. "Better brace yourself. Tonight's gonna make the woods look tame." He opened the warehouse door with a rusted squeal. Inside, dim fluorescent bulbs flickered, barely lighting a huge open space cluttered with broken machinery, garbage, and cracked concrete. But my eyes were drawn to something far worse at the center of the warehouse, a makeshift set lit by industrial spotlights, surrounded by video cameras and monitors. In the center sat 2 metal chairs, each occupied by a figure wearing black hoods over their heads, zip-tied tightly to the chairs. My chest felt tight, breathing shallow, panic rising again. Rabbit leaned in close, sour breath invading my nostrils, whispering sharply, "Tonight's interactive. Viewers pay big money to watch and vote on what happens next." I nearly threw up right there. He shoved me toward a corner, ordering me to film everything. Shaking, I set up my camera, hands fumbling with the equipment, praying silently that this was just some twisted nightmare I'd wake up from soon. Then Rabbit stepped into view, grinning like a psychopath, addressing the hidden livestream viewers directly. He pulled off both hoods in one swift motion, revealing 2 terrified young men, both gagged, one visibly younger, probably 18 at most. The other, older guy, looked about my age, mid-20s, tattooed and bruised. They both struggled desperately, eyes wide in horror, confusion, silently begging for help. Rabbit picked up an iPad, checking something, then announced coldly, "Our viewers have chosen option 1. Only one gets to leave here alive. You fuckers decide which." He held the tablet towards me for a brief moment, and what I saw made my stomach churn violently again. It was a chat room, hundreds of usernames posting comments, emojis, and voting. Actual fucking viewers were watching and voting live on the dark web, casually deciding who lived or died like it was some twisted video game. Rabbit quickly got his answer, smiled cruelly, and moved towards the younger kid. Without hesitation, he grabbed a filthy hunting knife from a nearby table, the blade rusted and crusted with old blood. The kid's eyes widened. His frantic, muffled screams filled the warehouse as Rabbit slowly pressed the blade against his cheek, drawing blood, smiling wider as tears poured down the boy's face. I was frozen behind the camera, every muscle in my body locked in horror. Rabbit taunted the older guy, holding the blade inches from his throat. "You gonna thank these sick fucks online? They just spared your worthless life," he sneered. Rabbit suddenly plunged the knife deep into the younger boy's thigh, twisting it slowly. Blood spurted violently, soaking Rabbit's hand as the kid shrieked and convulsed in agony, his screams muffled by the gag. Rabbit laughed loudly, clearly enjoying the spectacle, relishing every scream and sob. My head spun with nausea, the metallic smell of blood filling the air, mixing horribly with Rabbit's stale body odor. The older captive shook uncontrollably, crying behind his gag, forced to witness every horrific second. Rabbit, driven by the live chat's sadistic encouragement, dragged the blade down the kid's thigh, opening a gruesome, gaping wound, muscle and bone clearly visible, blood pooling rapidly at his feet. The victim slumped forward, eyes rolling back from shock, body twitching violently. Rabbit moved calmly to a nearby table, picking up a metal baseball bat. He swung it hard against the kid's ribs, the sickening crunch echoing through the warehouse. The boy's body shuddered grotesquely and then went horrifyingly still. Blood dripped slowly onto the concrete floor beneath him. Rabbit turned, grinning at the camera, and announced casually, "Sorry, kids. Looks like contestant 1 didn't last long. Time to see if our friend here has stronger bones." I knew what was coming. The older guy knew it too, violently thrashing against his restraints, eyes begging me silently for help. But I stood paralyzed, forced to record this nightmare, every breath choking me. Rabbit lifted the bloody baseball bat again, clearly enjoying this sick performance. He raised it, then hesitated, eyes narrowing as he noticed something on the screen. A comment caught his attention. He smiled again, this time directly at me. "Our viewers have a special request tonight," Rabbit sneered. "They want the cameraman to get involved." My heart stopped. The world seemed to freeze. He walked slowly toward me, baseball bat dripping blood, eyes locked onto mine. "Don't worry, you're not dying tonight," Rabbit whispered. "You're just gonna swing the bat." My knees nearly gave out as he thrust the bloody bat into my shaking hands, whispering harshly into my ear, "Hit him, or I'll gut you both right fucking now." I stared helplessly at the pleading captive, desperate tears streaming down his bruised face. I was about to become just as sick as Rabbit. The room spun as the viewers online cheered through a small speaker, mocking laughter filling the warehouse. I swung the bat once, weakly, stomach heaving as the captive screamed through his gag. Rabbit laughed loudly, urging me on. "Harder!" he barked, "or you're next." And in that moment, I knew I wasn't just filming evil anymore, I was becoming it, and I couldn't fucking stop. After what happened in that warehouse, I completely lost any shred of who I was. I barely remember driving home. Everything felt blurry, numb, like my brain had disconnected from my body to protect itself. I spent days afterward drinking myself stupid and binge-watching Netflix on autoplay, trying desperately to drown out the visions of that kid's pleading face. But it was no use. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the weight of the bat in my hands again, heard the sickening crunch of bone, and saw Rabbit's twisted fucking smile. It was around 2 weeks later when I got another message from Jax. This one was shorter, colder, almost mechanical. "Tonight, midnight, motel room 13, don't fuck it up." I couldn't even pretend I had a choice anymore. If I ran, they'd track me down in hours. They had photos of me at my favorite Starbucks, screenshots from my private Instagram account, even knew the names of people I'd dated in the past. They owned me, and I was trapped. The motel was even more run down this time, a ratty place called the Greenway Motor Lodge, room 13. Of course it was fucking room 13. My hands shook as I knocked softly. and Rabbit opened the door immediately. He looked rougher this time, bruises under his eyes, sweat dripping from his greasy hair. He gestured me inside without saying a word. Inside, the room reeked of mold, cigarettes, and something else, something coppery and nauseatingly familiar. Blood. My eyes instantly fell to a pile of bloody clothes crumpled on the carpet beside the bed. A torn Levi's jacket, stained jeans, and one Converse sneaker soaked with crimson splatters. My stomach twisted violently. On the bed, half hidden under stained sheets, was a handgun next to a dirty syringe and a few scattered pills. "Where's your camera?" Rabbit growled impatiently. I quickly pulled out my gear, heart hammering painfully against my ribs. Rabbit gestured silently for me to follow him out back, leading me across the parking lot to his van again. He opened the sliding door, revealing a battered, crying woman curled up in the corner. She looked around my age, maybe late 20s, wearing a ripped black dress, heavy makeup smeared all over her face. Mascara ran down her bruised cheeks, blending with blood dripping from her busted lip. She begged me through sobs to help her, reaching out weakly, her trembling hand shaking violently. Rabbit grabbed her roughly by the hair, yanking her onto the gravel. "You get to live a little longer," he sneered, dragging her toward another vehicle parked behind the building, a black Ford pickup truck I hadn't noticed before. He forced me into the back with her, pressing a Glock pistol firmly against my ribs. "Film everything clearly this time," he whispered coldly, "and no shaking or I'll blow your head off on camera." We drove silently for almost half an hour, deeper into the empty countryside. The girl quietly sobbed beside me, whispering incoherent prayers, occasionally glancing desperately at me for help I couldn't offer. Eventually, we stopped at an abandoned farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. Rusted farm equipment littered the yard, grass waist-high, a sagging barn standing ominously nearby. It looked abandoned, except for a single, dim light, flickering in the basement window. Rabbit dragged the woman out by her hair, ignoring her screams and pleas. I stumbled after them, camera shaking uncontrollably, adrenaline and fear fighting for control. Rabbit opened a rusty cellar door hidden beneath layers of weeds. He pushed her down the stairs, laughing when she hit the concrete floor below. He shoved me after her, slamming the heavy door shut behind us. The cellar was a nightmare, lit only by the sickening yellow glow of old bulbs hanging from exposed wires. The walls were lined with chains, hooks, tools, knives, saws, pliers, rust-covered gardening shears, tools designed for pain. Bloodstains covered the floor in dried, dark patches. I nearly vomited again. Rabbit pulled the woman into the center of the room, chaining her wrists above her head, leaving her dangling, helpless. He turned to the camera and spoke directly to the unseen audience. "Tonight, dear viewers, something special, a very personal request from the boss himself." He took out a small, black duffel bag I'd never noticed before and dumped its contents onto a wooden table, various surgical knives, scalpels, a hammer, and something resembling a cattle prod. The woman's sobs turned into hysterical screams when she saw them. Rabbit smiled, looking amused, and whispered something I wish I'd never heard clearly into the microphone clipped to his collar. "Let's see if we can beat the record. Last one lasted 3 hours. Then he turned to me and growled, "Keep filming. Don't miss a fucking second. Every scream, every drop. Or you join her." I stood, frozen, silently filming as Rabbit began his brutal, methodical torture. He started by slicing slowly down her left arm with a rusty blade, the woman's shrill screams echoing off the basement walls. Her blood trickled down her fingertips, pooling beneath her suspended feet. Rabbit's smile widened, eyes wild with sadistic pleasure. I couldn't look away, not because I wanted to watch, but because he'd kill me if I stopped filming. Rabbit continued methodically, calmly using the tools one by one. Pliers ripping out fingernails, scalpels peeling skin in thin strips. Her voice grew weaker, fading into incoherent whimpers. He took his time, sometimes stopping to consult the screen, casually reading suggestions aloud from the sick fucks watching and donating money to prolong her suffering. At one point, Rabbit even handed me the pliers, blood dripping onto my trembling hands, and forced me to pull a tooth from her mouth myself. The feeling of her tooth cracking, the way her scream echoed inside my skull, it was unbearable. I vomited right there onto the blood-soaked floor. Rabbit laughed harder. "You pussy," he sneered. "Guess you're just good for holding the camera." After what felt like forever, the woman finally stopped responding entirely. She hung limp, pale, and lifeless. Rabbit sighed, annoyed, checking his phone. Only 2 hours and 17 minutes. Disappointing. He turned to me suddenly, his expression serious. "You'll need to help me dump her. Boss wants a clean sight this time." I had no choice but to obey. I helped Rabbit wrap her mangled body in a filthy blue tarp, struggling to drag her lifeless weight out of the basement and into the woods nearby. Rabbit led me to a shallow pit already waiting, half hidden by bushes. Clearly, this wasn't the first time they'd done this. We rolled her body into the hole like garbage, dirt covering her battered face, slowly hiding her forever beneath the cold earth. As we drove silently back to the motel, Rabbit casually scrolled through his phone, occasionally chuckling at messages he received from whoever was watching. He dropped me at my car without another word, leaving me shaking, covered in blood, guilt eating me alive. The worst part wasn't even that I'd helped dispose of a body. It was realizing that these viewers, normal, everyday people, were out there somewhere, hiding behind their screens, paying and commenting, getting off on every sick moment of suffering. And I had just become their favorite filmmaker. I couldn't escape it now. I was trapped, complicit in something darker than anything I'd imagined possible, and I knew deep down they weren't finished with me yet. Days passed in a foggy blur. I barely slept, didn't eat, just stayed glued to my filthy couch with empty Domino's pizza boxes piling up around me. My phone was constantly buzzing. Creditors, missed calls from my mum wondering why I wasn't answering. My ex DMing me on Instagram wondering why I'd blocked her number. But I couldn't function enough to care. My mind felt completely shattered. A week later, I woke to pounding at my apartment door. Panic shot through me instantly, thinking Rabbit or someone worse had come for me. Instead, when I opened the door cautiously, 2 uniformed cops stood in the hallway, badges flashing. I froze, every muscle going rigid. They introduced themselves as Detectives Collins and Murray, NYPD. They started asking routine questions at first. Had I seen anything unusual? Did I know a missing woman named Katie Reynolds? Had I seen suspicious activity around my building? Her parents had reported her missing, last seen at a bar downtown, the very same night I'd filmed her death. Hearing her name for the first time crushed me inside. My voice shook as I lied, saying I knew nothing, that I'd been home alone binge-watching Netflix all night. They eyed me suspiciously, clearly seeing through my bullshit, but left after giving me their card. That night, Telegram lit up again. Another message from Jax. "We warned you. You spoke to cops. Now you're a loose end." Below was a blurry picture of me, taken through my apartment window less than an hour earlier, sleeping on my couch. My blood ran cold. They were watching right now. Seconds later, a second message appeared. "One last job tonight. No payment, but do it, and we disappear. Refuse, and the next video stars you." Attached were coordinates to an abandoned apartment complex downtown. No other instructions, just an ultimatum. My heart raced, hands sweating. I had no choice left. It was past midnight when I pulled up outside the building, an old, graffiti-covered tenement on the outskirts of the city. Most windows were shattered or boarded up. Trash littered the streets. Rabbit waited in the shadows by the entrance, his van nowhere in sight, eyes bloodshot and face pale, twitching nervously. "This way," he whispered harshly, handing me a small camera, pushing me through a broken door into darkness. "Film everything! You fuck this up, we both die." We climbed rotting stairs littered with garbage, needles, condoms, and rat droppings. I gagged, trying to keep silent, as Rabbit led me toward a cracked door at the end of a hallway on the 3rd floor. Inside was nothing but shadows until my eyes adjusted. Sitting tied to a wooden chair was a battered, half-conscious figure. Rabbit flicked on a dim flashlight, illuminating the captive's bruised face. It was Detective Collins, face swollen, bleeding from a deep gash over his eye. He looked up weakly, his expression a mix of fury and fear. Rabbit grinned maliciously. "Turns out our cop friend here wouldn't leave shit alone. Boss wants him to deliver a message." Rabbit grabbed Collins roughly by his jaw, forcing him to look directly into my camera. "Tell your friends to stop looking, pig," Rabbit spat. "Or your pretty daughter's next, understand?" Collins stared defiantly for a moment, then spat blood directly into Rabbit's face. Rabbit didn't flinch. Instead, he calmly wiped it away, grabbed a metal pipe lying nearby, and swung it violently into the detective's kneecap. Collins let out a guttural howl, pain filling every inch of the filthy room. Rabbit turned to me, his eyes colder than ever. "Your turn," he hissed. He shoved the pipe into my hands, eyes narrowed dangerously. "Make sure they know we mean it." Collins, gasping and in agony, stared up at me, tears mixing with blood on his battered face. "Don't, please," he whispered hoarsely. My entire body shook violently. I couldn't do this again, but Rabbit pressed a gun against the back of my skull. "Now!" he growled. Survival instinct took over. I swung weakly, connecting with Collins's shoulder. Rabbit pressed harder, forcing me again and again until I felt something break under the impact. Collins's agonized screams filled my ears, tearing my soul apart. I dropped the pipe, collapsing to my knees, vomiting violently onto the dirty floor again. Rabbit laughed bitterly, satisfied. "That'll do." Suddenly tires screeched outside, red and blue lights flashing through broken windows, police radios echoing. Collins, barely conscious, managed a weak smile through the blood and bruises. Rabbit's expression twisted with panic and rage. "You stupid fuck!" he screamed, grabbing me by my hair and dragging me toward the stairwell. Gunshots echoed, footsteps thundered below. Rabbit shoved me toward a side exit, gunfire exploding around us as police stormed the building. We burst outside, sprinting blindly into the night. I barely made it 50 feet before Rabbit collapsed beside me, screaming wildly, a bullet tearing into his leg. He dropped his gun, crawling desperately away, blood smearing the pavement. Without thinking, adrenaline surging, I grabbed the pistol and aimed it shakily at his head. Rabbit looked up, fear replacing his usual arrogant cruelty. "Wait!" he gasped, eyes wide, pleading. But his voice caught as I pulled the trigger without hesitation. Blood sprayed violently from his skull, splattering my face. His body slumped heavily onto the sidewalk, lifeless and twitching. I stood, shaking violently, sirens wailing closer. I knew running was pointless. Within seconds, officers surrounded me, guns drawn, shouting commands. I dropped the weapon instantly, collapsing in surrender, sobbing uncontrollably, my nightmare finally over. But it wasn't. Hours later, handcuffed in an interrogation room, Detective Murray showed me photos pulled from my laptop and phone. The streams, messages, pictures from the woods, the warehouse, the cellar, all saved without my knowledge. Murray stared at me with disgust, laying out crime after crime I'd filmed or participated in. I was now the face of unspeakable evil, the scapegoat for every crime committed by these monsters. Jax, Murray explained coldly, never existed. Rabbit worked for people darker than you can imagine, people who will never see justice. But you're the one left holding the camera. You're the one everyone saw. To them, you're the monster. I stared blankly, numbness overtaking me. I knew he was right. The world would never see me as anything but the evil behind that lens. Rabbit's masters, those shadowy fuckers hiding behind screens, would vanish, untouched, anonymous, probably laughing right now, searching for their next cameraman. Murray stood up to leave, shaking his head, disgust written plainly on his face. "You had your chance to run, kid," he muttered, "but instead you filmed it." And as the interrogation door slammed shut behind him, leaving me alone with my own shattered reflection in the mirrored window, I finally realized the darkest truth of all. I wasn't forced to record those horrors. Deep down, I chose to stay behind that camera. And that's the part that haunts me most.